Hello, everyone. This is Oliver Wright of the Average Joe's Fantasy Football Podcast. Wanted to make a quick video this evening for those of you who are new to fantasy football. The concept is really quite simple. I know some of you guys may be seeing some of our videos and not quite knowing what's going on, so definitely want to explain a few things. So as simple as possible, I'll break down how fantasy football works. Now, anyone can start a fantasy football league. There are plenty of platforms out there that allow you to start a league. You can go to NFL.com. There's leagues on Yahoo. You can go to ESPN. You'll click on sports typically, then fantasy, fantasy home or fantasy football, and then you can start or join a league. Typically, leagues are going to be anywhere from 8 to 16 people, individuals. Each person is considered a manager of a team. And the idea simply is at the beginning of the fantasy football season, which typically begins with the regular season of the football season, you would draft a team before then. The draft simply is a pool of players, the pool of NFL players, typically the offensive players. There are some leagues that incorporate the defensive players, but that's a little more advanced. We'll keep it simple tonight. A pool of the offensive players. And what you want to do is pick the players you think are going to be the best at their particular position for that particular round. Now, of course, everybody in the league wants the great players. So as everyone picks, the good players come off the board. You have to strategize and come up with an idea of which player is best at your particular pick. So, for instance, round one, you may pick a guy like David Johnson or Todd Gurley or Julio Jones. And then, of course, everyone else in your league picks their person as well. And good players are going to continue to come off the board. So then round two, maybe you might want to pick up a guy like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. And there's different strategies that people employ. But again, what you want to do here is make the best team possible. The basic premise is that each offensive statistic, has a point value assigned. So, for instance, let's say Cam Newton, for a lot of you guys living in North Carolina and root for the Panthers, throws for a touchdown. Well, that touchdown is worth 6 points. Let's say he runs for 50 yards. Well, every 10 yards, you get a point for running. So he would get 5 points for running 50 yards and then throwing a touchdown. That's 6 points. So he would have 11 points between those two things. So what you want to do is, again, draft a team with that premise in mind of each statistical category having a point total assigned to those kinds of things. So in general, the more touchdowns an offensive player catches or rushes for, or the more rushing yards or passing yards you have, the higher point totals you have. It can certainly get very involved, especially when you talk about the strategy of what round to draft someone in. Some people are of the thought process that quarterbacks are so close in point totals that you wait till the later rounds of your draft to draft the quarterback. Some like to draft them up front and get the best ones they possibly can. Some people don't draft running backs until, round 10, 11, 12 and just do a whole bunch of wide receivers up front. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. And once the season starts, you start having to look at different trends. For instance, if a player is playing against a really good defense, if they're playing against, let's say you have a wide receiver like Odell Beckham, but he's playing against a shutdown cornerback who plays good defense one-on-one. Perhaps you may want to stay away from Odell Beckham for that particular week and put someone else in your lineup. So there's some different things there. We could certainly go a little bit deeper, but the simple premise behind it, if you are looking to get into fantasy football, is there's a draft, the pool of offensive players in the league. There's point totals assigned to each statistical category, and obviously the better your player does, the more points you get, and you'll have an opponent every week in your league. And hopefully you can win enough games to win the championship. If you have any other questions, certainly don't hesitate to come to our page and ask questions. We would love to answer those for you. There are still opportunities to play. We can certainly tell you where to go to do that. Again, this is Oliver with the Average Joe's Fantasy Football Podcast. Have a great night.